Everybody's doing well. Um, LaShawn Granberry, thank you for becoming a member. We appreciate you. We appreciate your time, your effort, and for you to click and become a member. Also, want to give a special shout out to Capital Economists. I got your email. You should have received your cash out as well. We appreciate you. I did not reply to your email, not because I didn't want to, because I did want to see it on the show, and we appreciate you. As well as those that attended last week. We thank you for coming and having a good time with us. I need to turn on this ceiling fan. It is hot in here. Mm-mm-mm. Let me see who all we got so far. We started on time, or a little bit on time. Let some people gather in and come in. While we do that, let's go over a review of last week's show. Um, let's see, episode is 71, right? So it would be episode 70. So let's go back and grab episode 70 and what we discussed last week on episode 70. Um, I even forget stuff sometimes on what we discussed. Let me see. What all did we talk about? This week's gonna be a doozy. This week's gonna be a doozy. Oh, we talked about the guy's site that I didn't get a chance to pull up before. Keon is our law. That's what the name of the site is. But we talked about estate planning versus prenups. We also talked about if you're single, should you have an estate plan? We also talked about commingling your assets in your estate while you're married, right? So recap on that. If two people are married, one person comes in with an estate, or you both come in with an estate. We went over the fact of commingling assets out of those estates opens up the other party to say in a divorce go after your other assets in your estate. So no commingling estates. Um, Unless you're gonna take something out of an estate and then share it with the person. That would be the recommendation there. The other one was we looked at Robless, and we looked at two people did have an estate set up, but the lady didn't have her estate set up properly. And because her husband was going into a nursing home, of course, going into a nursing home, you have to deplete your assets. I think it's down to $2,000. And because she was married to him and her estate wasn't set up properly, she had to deplete her assets, meaning her kids wouldn't have anything. She wouldn't be giving her kids anything because she was then responsible for him. So, with that being said, we talked about this last week. Make sure you set up your estates properly. Adele Marshall, good morning or good afternoon. If you're on the East Coast, Donna Watts, what's going on, Don? Data Christian, what's going on? You changed your name this week. What's going on? Katie King, how you doing? And good morning or good afternoon, wherever you're at. The other one is transferring ownership of your home um, to your children. And we talked about it last week how it creates a tax bill for the child, right? We talked about that, and let me see what else we talked about on here. We didn't get a chance to talk about. I had RV parks on here as an investment. I'll bring it up probably next week. We won't have time to bring up RV parks, how to find them, and do them and set them up as investment. We don't have time this week. What's going on, Mashana? How you doing? Helmet Chili. How you doing? All right, so let's get into a word from our sponsor. I hope my person is ready to for our sponsor. Sponsor, are you ready? The sponsor in the background. D's in the background. I hope D's ready. No? Hold on. Let me see. I got a private chat. Hold on. Okay, sponsor is ready. So a word from my sponsor. Hey everybody, welcome to Women in Linux. I am Tam and D is in the background. And we just want to share with you some of the perks being here on our channel. All right. So first things first, if you want to connect with us on social media, connect with us anywhere on social media at Women in Linux. If that's just too much for you, you can always come and find us on womeninlinux.org. And if that's not enough, we have even more perks where you can hit the connect button. Once you hit connect button, you put your email address in here. And once you put your email address in here, it'll connect with us in our Slack group. We have tons of resources in our Slack group. People looking for jobs, people just looking for advice, people looking for information, and so forth, right? So again, this is Slack. It's not Discord. So on with using Slack, I warn you, it is resource heavy. So you may need to use either the web browser, or if you're on your phone, you should be fine. But if you're on your desktop, and we know most of you connect on your computer, it's easier to open it up in your web browser so it doesn't take up so much memory or so many processes and so forth. That's just an FYI. That's how I use it. Okay. And if you would like to shop with us, we still have our stuff from our 5-year stuff. Still good. We're working on more t-shirts. No, no estate, no date. We're still working on that. But again, if you want to shop and you want to get some merch, feel free to come here and get some merch. Again, if you come over here and click on all products, you'll see on all the products that we have, from hoodies to masks and so forth and so on, right? And if that isn't good enough for you, you can donate. You can always donate with your time. You can donate with your money. So how do you donate with your time? You donate with your time by saying, hey, I would like to do a presentation, or I like to volunteer on helping us grow the channel. You retweet, you share this with other members. In fact, for those of you that come here every single week, we know you come here every single week and you don't subscribe. Subscribe. That helps us grow the channel. That helps us get more content to you. Hey, research isn't easy. I'm not getting paid to do research. I wish it was at a university, but hey, I'm bringing this to you, right? I'm bringing this to you and us and for others, right? So if that doesn't work, you can always donate on PayPal by clicking the donate button. Once you hit the donate button, you have your own denominations in which you can donate. And if that doesn't work to you, you can always reach out to D and you can cut a check and send a check. That works for us as well. All right. So what are some other things that we actually do have as well, right? So we have a discount with IT Pro TV. You get 30% off. I've used IT Pro TV myself. I've done interviews with them. I'll pull those up as well too. But as you can see, I'm logging into IT Pro TV. What are the benefits here? You need to learn how you learn. So one of the things you can do in IT Pro TV, you can come over here, you can click on courses, and it gives you a list of courses that's separating them out by certification, and also separate them out by learning paths. You're like, Tameika, what does that mean? My 4 basic principles, or my 4 basic foundations of skill sets that you should have is Linux. You should also have an automation tool, whether it's Terraform or Ansible. You should know at least a cloud. I don't care. Pick either one. And finally, last but not least, security. And security comes in multiple forms: security of the operating system, security of the application, and also security of containers, right? And cloud security. So it's multiple facets when we're talking about security. Those are your 4 basics that you're going to need to get you a job and then move you up. All right. And we're going to talk about our membership here in another video, but I just want to get this out to you. All right. So that's 30% off of IT Pro TV. And last but not least, our Calendly. We have set up for our Calendly. Let me pull that up. I think I have it saved in my browser here, so I can just go straight to it. If not, I'll get it from D here. Here we go, right here. All right. So with Calendly, we have one-on-one sessions. That's where you get to talk to either me or D, and you can request either one. But where you get to talk to us in a one-on-one session, right? Interview prep. Some of you are getting ready for interviews, or you've never interviewed before. We want to prep you for an interview. resume review. Let's go over what you have, or let's pull all your skills together. Let's get things formatted properly. Let's get everything going. And last but not least, career assessment. What is your journey? What could it look like? What could you be going through? What are your next steps? Some of you are transitioning, some of you are not, some of you are looking to transition, and some of you are just trying to figure out what is your next step. So by saying all of this, we want you to enjoy your time here at Women in Linux, and also, as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the share button, and last but not least, thank yourself that you actually did it. Hey everybody, welcome. I'm back. It was a word from my sponsors. Tell us what you think. What are your thoughts? Drop them in the chat. You heard from my sponsor, the illustrious Tam, which is a good person. I find Tam to be a very good person. All right, just playing. Just let us know in the chat what you think. Trying to incorporate different things instead of going through the same thing every week. You get a commercial, boom. Yeah, jam packed with info. The way, because I know some people be like, I don't know where to look, and I don't know what to do. Boom, we got a little intro for you. Boom, take care of that. What's going on, Horace? What's going on, Stacy? All right, so drop in the comments what you think about the intro. She all right. Done. That's what I said. She all right sometimes. Sometimes she all right. She all right. All right. So y'all ready to get cracking this morning? We got a lot of stuff to go over. But let me open up with this. All right. So remember, we've been talking about the three bucket strategy, right? And for those that don't remember, tax down, um, tax deferred, and tax free or after tax, if you want to look at it that way. And we also kind of lined up your skill sets along with that three bucket strategy. What are your skill sets now? What's going to be your short term goal for your skill sets? And then what are your lifelong skill sets, right? Things that you can use throughout your entire career, right? All right. But to line this up with everything this morning, we also talk about investing into your 401k and what that looks like. So your 401k and part of your Roth 401k and Roth IRA and IRA fall into the tax deferred bucket. And later on in this show, we're gonna talk about the actual um, situation with tax deferred, and how later on you may have to do a Roth conversion, which could lead to a loss of money. So, say that $10 million portfolio or that $50 million portfolio you wanted to get. Say you're really heavy in your tax deferred. At some point, you're going to have to pay taxes on that money coming out. And for all, I believe for all tax accounts right now, the RMDs, required minimum distributions, RMDs, I believe is 71 and a half or 72 right now, meaning you have to pull that money out. You have, like, the government is like, you got to pull that money out. And if you're in a deferred situation, you're going to have to pay taxes on that money. And we also talked about, hey, if you pass on and you leave that money to a child or whatnot, that child or significant other, however you, whoever your beneficiary is going to have to pay an inheritance tax. So we're going to look at all that today. I got a lot of stuff to go over. A couple of videos that I found that are useful. I found a lot of things, but right now let's focus on our tax-free bucket. Right? We like tax-free, meaning we like to invest tax-free. So I went and started thinking about, well, what different ways that we can get our tax-free bucket up. And I wanted to highlight that because some of you are in Roth IRAs and Roth 401ks, where you could be heavy on the Roth side, because it gives you that tax free. And actually, it gives you, if you really want to look at it, it also gives you a bit of ability to have money now, if you want to look at it that way, without paying. the penalty because you already paid into that. And when I say that, let me clear that up. Meaning, like I could take a loan out on that. That money is there. I could do something with it. You could take a loan out on your 401k and stuff, but then you pay that back. But we'll get into it. We'll get in a little bit more into that. So let's talk about tax free. All right, so tax free. When I say tax free, I don't mean I'm not saying that you have to do this. I'm just giving you options to build up your three buckets, right? Your three buckets. All right, so investing is a powerful way to grow your savings over time. However, one of the downsides is generally that you have to pay taxes on your investment gains, right? So some of your some stocks out there and municipal bonds are tax free, right? Meaning that you don't pay taxes on those. So let me clarify that when we get through here. All right, so let's hop down here. What is tax efficient and what is tax free investing? Now, I'm bringing this up because we've been talking about estate planning and we've been talking about wealth accumulation and wealth building and wealth preservation. We haven't focused a lot on wealth preservation, but we will in one of these videos. But what we need to be aware of is the capital gains and also how the taxes over time can affect our portfolio. Remember, I talked about the 10 million for retirement. Well, for those that are doing 10 million, 5 million, 50 million, right? When we talk about this, we have to also look at um we also have to look at the what they call the smile for retirement. And I was talk about this in the video, but basically when you first retire, you kind of heavy up on your withdrawal. And as time go on, you don't need as much money, true or false that could be, because you could need more money because it could be the fact that you need more money for your health care. And I talked about this on the last show too, where if you're going to start you're doing your estate planning and your wealth accumulation, include say having money for your health care, right? Because you get older. Some people are single, some people may have a significant other, but the significant other has health issues. So keep that in mind as you're doing your wealth accumulation and wealth building and wealth preservation. All right. So the unfortunate truth about earning investment. Oh, you may not be able to see this. Let me blow that up a little bit. All right. The unfortunate truth about earning investment income is that you'll never be able to avoid taxes altogether. Uncle Sam will always get his cut one way or another, but how much the government will charge you depends heavily on the investments you choose and how long you hold them, right? For starters, investments are called capital gains. These come in both long term and short term categories. Remember, we talk about these three buckets, right? Long-term capital gains means you held your investments for at least a year. Short-term capital gains conversely means that you held them less than a year. If you reach the long-term threshold, your tax treatment may be significantly better. That's because short-term capital gains are levied based on normal tax brackets, whereas long-term capital gains have lower rates of 0%, 15%, and 20%. I'm going to pause right there because I know some of you play options. So some of you that play options, and you may play options for a year out, 2 years out, or 3 years out. When is a stock going to split? A stock is going to reach a certain level, this, that, and another. So some of you play, the long game when it comes to your stock options, and some of you are day traders, and you're trading. You're in a trade and you're out of trade. So I get that, right? So just keep those capital gains in mind. In turn, you in turn, the main way you can be tax efficient investor is to try to stick, try to stick to long term investments. That means minimizing your day trading and other volatile and investing techniques. Of course, if you're saving for the purpose of retiring, you may already want to avoid taxes. So I'm gonna skip this basic tax rule, and we're gonna hop into the tax-free topics, right? Municipal bonds or muni bonds for short, are bonds issued by local governments that are used to fund various projects such as improving roads, and building schools. So the buyback program, the Biden infrastructure program, those companies that have invested into building the infrastructure, you can go out and check and see what municipal bonds or muni bonds are performing. Remember, these are a way to have tax free. Remember, that third bucket that we want to build is that tax free bucket or after tax bucket, right? You're effectively loaning money to the government. The benefit to you is that you're earned a guaranteed rate of return in the form of interest payments from the bond. Even better, these interest payments are exempt from federal taxes. A tax-free exemption may also apply to state and local on interest earnings as well, right? All right, municipal bonds do have certain risks and certain downsides. Inflation, for instance, can affect the interest rate and your subsequent rate of return, which is funny because I've been watching some videos and looking at charts, and on some of the charts, they've been showing that even though we are in a inflation situation, in some cases, some municipal bonds are actually up, right? And they're having a greater return on some of them. I'm not saying all of them, but on some. So do your due diligence and look for tax-free municipal bonds. That you can type it in, and it'll be a slew of them that'll come up. All right. So tax exempt mutual fund is a collection of securities that it may consist entirely of stocks or bonds, or include some combination of the two. The fund either tracks an index or a professional manages it, offering the opportunity to be hands off on investment. Certain mutual funds assign tax exempt status, meaning you wouldn't pay taxes on the returns and the funds deliver, right? A tax exempt fund typically holds municipal bonds and other government securities. This type of fund can offer tax benefits and also simplified diversification. So again, we're talking, all this is about the tax-free bucket, right? We want to get in, and we want that gain over time to be tax-free. We don't want to be bothered with your taxes or whatnot. We want a good return, but we don't also want to be bothered with your taxes, right? And you got to understand who you are as a investor, or for long term, right? Are you aggressive, moderately aggressive, moderate, moderately, I guess you could say, conservative, and then really conservative? Like, I don't want my money fluctuating on nothing. I want slow, steady growth. I'm cool with 2 or 3%, maybe even 4%. Just give me my money. And that's where, if we look at this, that's where your whole life insurance plan comes in at, where you have slow growth, it's conservative, it's not a lot of risk. You know, you're gonna get anywhere from 4% to 6.2%, depending on who you're with. You have a slow and steady pace. You can have access to your money now from a cash value. You know, there's a death benefit. It's going to increase over time. You're cool with that. Keep it moving, and you can be your own banker if you wanted to, like, call it the 501(k) plan. Some people do, but that gives you an idea of that, right? And then some people like, no, I want to be aggressive, I want all my monies, I want everything, right? So some people are more aggressive. All right, so tax exempt ETFs, exchange traded funds, are similar to mutual funds, but they trade on the exchange like a stock. Many ETFs take a passive management approach, meaning the assets within the fund don't turn over as often as they would with a active managed fund. Many ETFs, in fact, just track the index rather than have a fund manager choose the securities for you. Like the mutual funds, also municipal bonds focus, which provide the same tax exempt benefits. There are short term, mid, and long term tax exempt bond ETFs you can invest in depending on your time horizon, similar to tax exempt mutual funds. Pay attention to the fees, right? You're paying to invest. Drop a one in the chat if you like what you hear and if you understand what I'm talking about. Are you all investing in tax free ETFs, municipal bonds, what have you? Do you have a tax free bucket set up? And if you do have a tax free bucket set up, let us know what you're actually invested in. Maybe share what you have with others, so we all can We all don't know everything, but it's this what the community is for. We're here to share, right? All right. Another one is an IUL, an Index Universal Life. You may not think life insurance as an investment, but your policy could yield some tax benefits in your portfolio. Generally, life insurance benefits are tax free when you go to the when they go to the policy's beneficiary. If you have a permanent policy that accumulates cash value, the IUL, the cash value, can earn interest over time tax free. And unlike retirement accounts, you don't have to be pushing 60 to withdraw from, as tax-free loans can be taken out. Again, if you take out a loan, those loans overall come from the death benefit if you don't pay them back, right? IU end up, but you also, depending on how you have it set up, IUL, I'm not sure. And intentional millionaire, good morning. You can tell me yes or no. I know in some cases there is a penalty if you underfund or over withdraw on your loans, but you can have a rider that protects against that. But I'm not sure if that's in the IUL. I know in mine I have protection both ways for that, but intentional millionaire or whoever out there can let me know if that's the case for an IUL. All right, let's get back to it. Roth IRA and Roth 401ks. The Roth IRA, it isn't an investment itself, but a retirement account for tax free. Remember, with a Roth, you'll have a tax side, you'll have a tax deferred side, and then you'll have a pre-tax side. Meaning, in other words, going into the account, it's going to take the taxes out, and it's just going to be your cash that's sitting there for you, right? So let's look at it. It says with a Roth IRA, you can contribute after tax dollars to your account up to an annual limit. For 2021, the limit is 6,000 plus an additional 1,000 to catch up if you're older. Now, the Roth 401k is a little different. I said after tax dollars means that unlike traditional IRA, you can't deduct your contributions, but the benefit comes when you hit the age of 59 and a half, at which point you can begin withdrawing money from your Roth IRA tax free, right? Because you have two sides, so you can start pulling that out for cover without the penalty at 59 and a half, right? And that's why I was going like you could pull it out at 59 and a half. I'm not saying you can pull it out right now. Some of you are not 59 and a half, but you know what I mean. All right, that includes all the returns your investments have seen over the years, which means that your investments have earned tax-free returns. The only caveat is your account has to be open for at least 5 years before taking this distribution, right? You can continue adding after-tax dollars to your Roth IRA indefinitely as long as you have earned income for the year. And there are no requirements for taking minimum distributions once you reach 70 and a half. And I think it's 72. I got to see how old this article is. I think it's 72 or 71 and a half, or I think it's on its way to become 72. Don't quote me on that one. That means you can continue growing your retirement savings tax free until you need it. And if you don't use all of your savings, you can pass it on to a spouse or another beneficiary when you pass away. Now, what I'm not sure about that, right? When you pass that on to someone in certain states, and we're going to look at this, in certain states, there are penalties with passing that on if it's over a certain number. And we'll look, I'll show you what I'm talking about. The Roth 401k is tax free. Is also a tax-free way to save for retirement. These plans may be available through your employer, so check with them. On the other hand, you can enroll into a solo Roth 401k. And although I don't know, are you all in a Self IRA at all? Because if you are self-employed and you have a Self IRA, you this year you can donate up to 61,000. I think next year is supposed to go up to 62,000. And you're saying to yourself, why does that matter? Well, you may have a job where you're making high income and you want to have that money working while you work. And so you may want to invest in something and have that money doing this thing, right? HSA, I don't know how many of y'all have an HSA over a FSA, but your HSA, you can contribute. Actually, I have a video for that. I won't cover that this week, but I actually have a video for that, right? HSA allows you to save for your future medical expenses while reducing your taxable income. Anyone with, and I think I'm because I'm single, it's 3,600. If I was married, it would be 7,300, right? Anyone with a high deductible health insurance plan can get one. You can make contributions to your account up to an annual limit 3,500, and it's yeah, this 2019, it's 3,600 now for 2022, and 7,000 is 7,300 now for families. Yeah, so this is an older article. All right. HSA has a triple tax benefit. Your contributions come from your paycheck before taxes and or a tax deductible, which will lower your tax bill for the year. I have an HSA, and my company donates or contributes to my HSA as well too. They contribute. I max it out, and then they contribute 150 a month to my HSA as well too. So check and make sure that your company does a check to see if they do a contribution to your HSA. The money in your account grows on a tax deferred basis, which is especially important if you have an HSA that lets you invest your savings in mutual funds or other investments. When you withdraw the money in your HSA for qualified medical expenses, the distribution is taxed. It's 100% tax free. Now, this could also be a part of your portfolio. When I'm talking about your whole estate portfolio, remember we talked about the lady that had to give up her estate for her husband, right? So, and we're talking about healthcare concerns. So you could actually use your HSA as part of your healthcare concerns, right? Where you're investing in that. So whenever you go to the doctor, instead of pulling from your retirement money, if you want to look at it that way, you're actually pulling from your HSA so that you can go you have your medical expenses covered. So you still have that money over there. We still have money that you're getting from Social Security, right? You know that max, if it's still there, if the trust fund is still there, you still have that as well too. So again, having your HSA is a good thing. Keeping it up and keep contributing to it is another good thing as well too. All right, 529. Those for you for college savings is another way. And then they said there are other ways to defer taxes in your portfolio, but again, tax deferred, we want tax free, right? Bottom line, being a tax efficient investor can play huge dividends later, especially when you retire. By limiting Uncle Sam's cut of your money, you maximize your financial potential when you need it the most. Therefore, regardless of whether you work with financial advisors or you do it all on your own, make sure it always take taxes into account. Tips for managing your tax portfolio: get a financial advisor. Also, get a CPA so you know where your money is going, what you can do with your taxes. And it says use strategies to set up multiple sources of tax-free retirement income. Multiple sources of tax-free retirement income. We went over 7. There are others, right? However, you won't avoid taxes altogether, as even Social Security benefits are taxable. They are. If some of your Social Security benefits are taxable, they are taxable. The good news is that some states are more friendly for retirement income when it comes to a state level income taxes. Our list is most likely is the most and least likely friendly states for retirees. And let's click on that so y'all can see that. And then I got a video for us to get into. So that what are the best states to retire for taxes? I went over this. What are the worst states to retire for with your taxes? So now let's go. What are the best states to retire for taxes? We saw that there's a death tax, an inheritance tax, and a state tax, right? And some states have all. We know Massachusetts is one of those worst states to retire in, and so is Maryland, right? Maryland's another one of those states that you don't want to retire in, and I think they have a death benefit too. But the video I got is gonna cover all of this. But let's get into this. All right, overview of retirement tax friendly states. All right, right here, let's scroll down. Very tax friendly is are the ones in the dark, right? So we see Florida, Georgia, got the taxes. That's why you see most people making those migrations. Tax friendly, that falls under Texas. It looks like Texas and these states right here are all the same color to me. Um, Colorado is very tax friendly, or just tax friendly, not very, moderately tax friendly. Is this blue? So North Carolina, Maryland, moderately, and not tax friendly, right? Of course, California is that place. Minnesota, Nebraska, Maine. Oh, they slaughtered Maine in this video. Vermont, Connecticut, Rhode Island, not friendly on the tax. But here's the thing. So they were saying in the video as well too, you can have like multiple houses around, right? The world, there's the United States, but where do you claim residency at is where you're gonna what's gonna determine your tax and how friendly that is, right? All right. So here's the listing right here for those very tax friendly. I'll give this to D and she could drop it if you all need it or want it or whatnot. But just something that you can know where where's the states that are tax friendly and so forth. All right, so now let me pull up this video that I wanted to get into. It's a long video. However, I think this video really dives into what we just covered, and it also gives you all a reference, right? I like for you to have references. Let me look here. See, that's convert. Yeah,
In
I think
today's
this
video,
is.
we're going to talk
Here we
about one
go.
of
All right. So for your retirement, and let me double verify if this is the video that I want here. Let me double verify this. Oh, do. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. All right. Yep. So I'm turning this up so y'all can hear, and I'll be pausing in between it and giving my thoughts. So how did you hear about dual citizenship and tax benefits? Any thoughts? Dual citizenship with what area are we talking about? Jamaica, Puerto Rico. Well, can you do dual citizenship with Puerto Rico? I don't think you can do that with Puerto Rico. I think you got to just establish a business and you get federal. But which locations are you talking? All right,
In today's video, we're going to
hold
talk
on.
about one of the most widely used rules in retirement planning, the
There you go.
4% rule. Now, this is
All right, so 4% rule. So he goes into a little bit more in depth detail about the 4% rule. But why I am showing this, I know that's a strategy that a lot of people use. In other words, what is going to be my drawdown in retirement? And in here, he talks about the taxes and so forth inside of your portfolio. And also he talks about um, uh, how to include inflation inside of your for your withdrawal, right? So we have to start looking at what your withdrawal. Every listen, 4% is like the standard. He actually gives international. This is why it's funny because you asked about it. Because in this video, he talks about the world and where you can go live if you don't want to stay in the states with the taxation where it may be cheaper to live internationally. We've seen the couple go over to Portugal for Lisbon. We've seen people go to Ghana. We've seen people. There's another location, the DR. Some people go to DR. Some people are retiring in Puerto Rico. We've seen all these different locations where people are retiring. Again, your whatever that looks like for you and what however that works for you is for you, right? Some people are not going to leave their parents. Some people are not going to leave their family. They have a bond. They're in Texas for life. They're in California for life. They're in Washington State for life. They're not leaving those areas. So you at least you know where to find them, right? Right. So here we go.
used by both advisors as well as a ton of online calculators to help retirees figure out how much they can safely spend from their portfolio. But as we're going to show in this video, there are some major problems that exist with the 4% rule that's very important to understand if you are letting this rule drive your retirement. We're going to talk about what those problems are as well as how to fix those. So let's get into it. Now, for those that don't know, the 4% rule was developed in 1996 by a financial advisor by the name of William Bengen. And essentially what William did is he looked at data going back to the early 1900s to 1996 and looked at a balanced 60-40 portfolio. And
so let me pause right there. Number one, the first thing is the 60-40 portfolio. I don't know. From what I'm reading and what I've been seeing on the 60-40 60-40% or 60-40% on the 60-40 rule, most people are saying that's diminishing, and that's not a good way to be looking at your portfolio, right? 60% stocks, right? And 40% bonds. So I've been seeing and reading a headline saying that's not good, right? And that actually goes away. And then on top of that, as you can see here at the bottom of the screen, this person has a $1.2 million portfolio and has $48,000 coming in at this current time. Now we have inflation at 9.1, and the average American household is at 68,000 or 70,000. So the question is that going to be enough for you in retirement, right? Is 48,000 going to be enough for you to live in retirement? And then where are you living, and is everything paid off? Are you occurring more debt? Have you done a conversion? Like, what does all of that look like? Is that 1.2 million tax free? Are you getting taxed on that? Those are things that you have to consider. And then, are you also being taxed on your Social Security as well too? Because I think for Social Security, is it at 28,000? You can't, after 28,000 they tax you. I'm not sure. Got to double verify that. But again, these are just things just to think about. Let's get back to the video.
And he looked at how much could we take from this portfolio from a percentage basis and make sure that we still have enough money left at the end. So how much could we spend from our portfolio? And what he found by looking at the research is the bottom level for what retirees can safely spend from their portfolio is 4%. Now, there are times within history where they could have spent significantly more, a significantly higher withdrawal rate, but the bottom level in terms of what would be a safe withdrawal rate was 4%. This means that if you had a starting portfolio of $1.2 million, you could start spending $48,000 from that portfolio. Now, there would be ups and downs within that portfolio, but this idea here is we're looking at the starting withdrawal rate, and then that's being adjusted for inflation through time. And that starting withdrawal rate is essentially that 4% that you could supposedly spend. But as we're going to show, there's some big problems within this 4% rule that prevent it from matching up retirees' expectations as they move into that stage of their life. First big.
All right, I want to start right there. I want to say you don't have to go with 4%. You can actually do 5%, 7%, 10%. But remember, people are actually living longer. So whatever you decide to come up with, people are living past 80, 85, 90, right? So one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to run out of money, but you also know the older you get, the higher your health care comes in. So that's why I talked about the HSA as well too, right? Now on the HSA, somebody may need to look this up because this just came to mind. Is there RMD on HSAs? Is there a required minimum distribution on HSAs? Is it at 42? I mean not 42. 70, 72. I'm not sure. That's just something to, let's see. 2022 rules state 22 rules state for healthcare on HSAs. Let's see. Tax-free can be withdrawn for any purpose after 65. Strict rules on HSAs has a current health coverage. You have no health care coverage with limited exceptions. You cannot be claimed as an independent by someone else for tax purposes, Medicare, HHS rules. I'm just looking to see if they got RMDs for it. All right, I'm just looking. Let me just do a thing, search on my on the site. All right. Unlike flexible spending accounts, you don't have to spend money in the HSA in the same year you make the contribution. You're not subject to the rules or RMDs that apply to other types of pre-tax savings accounts, such as 401ks and traditional IRAs. So that's a great benefit. I'll put this in the chat, and Dee can post this. I don't know. Did she post the other one? I don't know. I don't see it in there. For HSAs, so you can have that information for HSAs, right? So again, HSAs don't have the RMDs associated with them. All right, so he's going to do a comparison back over here with retiree A and retiree B for their on their retirement. Retiree A 1 million, retiree B another million, but the retirement spending is based on a 4% rule and the same portfolio size, same allocation, yet retiring 6 months later because retiree B 8,000 per year in income, or plus 8,000 a year. All right, so let's get into it.
Problem with the 4% rule is there is a ton of timing risk that is built into this given rule. For instance, we're going to take two retirees here, or two investors that are about to retire. Retiree A and retiree B. Now, at the start of 2022, they had a very similar situation. They both had $1 million portfolio. Now, retiree A is going to retire right at the beginning of 2022 before we've seen this market downturn that we're currently in. Now, this retiree had $1 million portfolio, so the 4% rule said they could start out spending $40,000 from their portfolio and increase that for inflation through time, and they would have a safe retirement. Now, retiree B, however, is going to work another 6 months to mid-2022. Now, both of these retirees are invested the exact same way. But because of delaying their retirement by 6 months, retiree B has found themselves with a smaller portfolio due to some market volatility. They currently have a $780,000 portfolio. Well, based on the 4% rule, when retiree B retired, they could only spend $31,200 from their portfolio. Now, this
All right, so I wanted to pause right there because I wanted to also bring this up to with your retirement. Like you all are gonna have to come up with your strategy. And remember, I'm just promoting the 3 bucket strategy because I think it makes sense. There are other strategies. This is not financial advice. Please seek a CPA, a financial advisor, a tax attorney, whatever the case may be. I just want you to understand what's this what you can do and what's the simplest thing to do. But remember, if you're gonna if you're gonna retire and you're only gonna be taking out 40,000 or 48,000, you need to make sure you're paying off some stuff, right? And I see out here now that loans are how the housing market loans are now going up to 50 years. 50 years, right? So if you're 30 and you get a loan for 50 years, that's insane. You'll be 80 before you pay that off if you don't pay on the principal or pay, lump sums on that principal, right? So again, what's going to be your thing that you're going to do, like what does retirement look like for you? And this part is important, and it's important that you plan now. A lot of people think that planning later is better because you have more money, but really in actuality it starts now, right? It even starts, if you want to be honest about it, it even starts with your parents before you even get out of high school, if you really want to be honest about it, right? But again, not everybody has that option. So, you know, but you could put $10 in there a month, for a kid and let that grow over time if you wanted to, right? But everybody has their thing. All right.
this is a huge issue when we think about building your retirement plan off of this 4% rule. The timing of your retirement can make the world of difference based on this rule for how much you can safely spend from your portfolio. So how can this problem ultimately be fixed? Well, we can still use this withdrawal rate idea, but we need to overlay some rules on top of this to make sure that retiree A and retiree B essentially experience a very similar retirement. Well, there's a great paper that I'll link to in the description below by two researchers, Guyton and Klinger. And essentially what they developed is a withdrawal rate guardrail system. Now, essentially how this works is you have an initial starting withdrawal rate. You then have an upper bound guardrail and a lower bound guardrail. Now, how I want you to think about this is when we hit an upper guardrail, that means our withdrawal rate increased. So for instance, in a given scenario, taking the previous example we just used, that first retiree started out spending $40,000 from their retirement assets. As they see their portfolio drop from $1 million to $780,000, it will spike their withdrawal rate. A $40,000 withdrawal on $780,000 is a little bit over a 5% withdrawal rate. And so you'd set an upper guardrail. And anytime we hit this upper guardrail, you would essentially adjust your income down. And so you'd adjust it down to a lower withdrawal rate so we can continue to sustain our portfolio through the rest of retirement. On the flip side, as we see better market returns, our withdrawal rate is going to drop. For instance, if that $1 million grew to $1.5 million over a 2 or 3 year period, well, now we're at a significantly lower withdrawal rate where $40,000 divided by $1.5 million portfolio is about a 2.6% withdrawal rate. And so when we hit those lower bounds, we can then adjust our income up and take more from our portfolio as we see better market returns and raise our income so we're at a withdrawal rate that is acceptable to allow us to maximize our income. Now, understand.
All right, now I want to start right there because this is another part of what I wanted to bring up today, and then I'm gonna come back to that video right here, right after this. So I went and looked up what on average people are seeing in their 401k right now. This is from Vanguard. This is 2021 between Vanguard and Fidelity are the two pretty much where most of your data is going to come from regarding your 401k and IRAs and so forth. So let's look at it. If you're under the age of 25, it's saying in a 403b or a 401 account, you probably have on average $6,000, right? And then it also says a median of 1,700. If you're between 25 to 34, on average, you have 37,000 in your 401k, right? On average, this is across the United States, right? From 35 to 44, it says you're having around about 97,000. And it says the median is about 36,000. So a lot of people want to retire by the time they're 40, 45 is what I'm hearing, like most people say. So that means back here, you need to make this you really need to be pumping in money here, right? Because from 25 to 45, that's 20 years of growth that you're gonna have to have. And you're gonna have to be creating tax-free, uh, your three buckets tax defer after tax, your strategies in terms of what kind of assets you're going to be invested in, and remember as well too as you're retiring at that, you're also going to be in a situation where you are still young, so you may live another 50 years. So what type of money are you earning between 25 to 45? It most definitely won't be 97,000, right? It's going to be way more than that, right? Way more than that, right? And so then the next one is if you're between 45 to 54, on average, you have 179,000. The median is 61. And then here from 55 to 64 is 256,000. And then 65 is up is 279, and then the median is 87,725. That's on average. So when we go back and look at the video that he's talking about, and they're saying they're at 780,000. He didn't give what, I don't remember if he gave the age or not, but I just want to be clarified, like what we're seeing in the U.S. versus what we're seeing, what people actually have. And that's been the number one thing, is that people are not going to have enough for retirement. So that's why they're telling people to either get married, find a significant other, or you're going to work through your retirement, right? You're going to work until you're 70, 75, which some people are. You're going to still you're going to still be in the mix, as they call it, the rat race. So how do you see yourself in retirement? What is that goal for you? What does that look like? And what skills are you going to have that's going to last you a lifetime so that you can still be in the game, right? I don't know. Maybe you want to be a Walmart greeter. I don't know. I think you would want to be a Target greeter because at least they pay you 24 a year and you can make 46,000, right? I think you want to be a Target greeter. I don't know. Do Target have greeters at the door? I don't think they do. Maybe you be a cashier or work at the service desk or something like that. Or maybe you come in and just hang up the clothes. I don't know. It's on you. Or maybe you're a secretary or something. I don't know. I don't know what your patience is to watch kids. So just keep that in mind. Just as we're talking about Q4C, you need 80 million in your portfolio. You're gonna have to come to the show tomorrow where we talk about some stuff. All right, let's get back to my guy here. Let's get back to it. All right.
Understand that this guardrail system is highly customizable. You can set your guardrails at any given distance. You can start with different initial withdrawal rates that can then change the guardrail system, as well as you can build in more aggressive adjustments or more conservative adjustments to that underlying income as well. So let's take a quick look at how this might look in practice. So on the screen, we have a scenario for a couple that has a little bit more than $1 million in retirement assets. Now they want to spend a little bit more than $8,000 per month from their retirement assets. Now, as we build in this dynamic income strategy within their plan, we're going to look at a Monte Carlo, which means 1,000 simulations of their retirement. And we're going to look at.
All right. So those that talk to your tax advisors or your wealth planning or what have you, how many of you have heard of the Monte Carlo? It comes up very often if you're looking at these videos. Oak Harvest talks about it. Rob Bliss talks about it. He talks about it. Everybody I've spoke to, there are different scenarios, right? Or different ways to skin a cat. Basically, you're taking in a lot of data. You're doing an analysis on it, and you're putting in scenarios to say, pretty much data modeling. What's going to be the best case scenario for this person when they retire, or this couple when they retire? What can they live off of? What's expected, right? It's based on historical data. What could possibly be expected, right? So that's where this comes from, right? So when you're doing your actual did you say a dog walker? But when you're doing your actual portfolio, remember we talked about what could be in an estate portfolio. We went over those. I went over that 3 times last week. What could be in your estate portfolio? Remember, having tax planning inside of this is very important as well too, right?
Everything from the worst case scenario to the best case scenario. Now, as we'll see on the screen, I have it as a dotted line, their goal income moving through time. And in the background, I have the worst and the 10th percentile results here. Now, as you'll see, the worst simulation is the only simulation where we see their dynamic income strategy drop below their goal income here. But as we can see, this appears to just be one poor phase of their retirement because they see that within a couple of years, it then rises back above their goal income. And now as they move through retirement, they're able to spend quite a bit above that goal income ultimately. But we see some of these given adjustments based on poor market returns and better market returns. On the right-hand side of the screen, we can see a summary of their situation. So on average, through all of these simulations, this couple sees a rise in their income of about 5.5% on average every 1.3 years. On the flip side, they see very few adjustments. So within these simulations, they see about a 5.7% adjustment down in income every 67 years. And again, this is ultimately what a retirement plan should be able to do for your retirement. Remember that 4% rule is based off the worst trial that we would have seen historically. So in the number of cases where the 4% rule works, meaning that you have money left at the end of your portfolio. You oftentimes have such a large surplus that you're leaving a lot to the next generation. Now, if that's your interest, great. But as we'll see, this withdrawal rate guardrail system can allow you to spend significantly more and allow you to enjoy the fruits of your labor. Problem number 2 with the 4% rule is one of, in my opinion, the biggest problems that I see with this 4% rule. And that's that it excludes critical income. And this 4% rule really is only built for a very poor withdrawal strategy. And that withdrawal strategy would be you turn age 62, you retire at 62, and you immediately turn on Social Security. We can see why this 4% rule is built for this. You have the Social Security income essentially filling in your income, and then you can simply take 4% of your retirement portfolio, add it on top of that Social Security income, and simply take that moving through time. But what happens when we're using a better Social Security strategy that delays our benefit, thus earning us a larger benefit?
All right, so have y'all went to the Social Security website and looked to see what your Social Security would be? Your distribution would be from 62 to 65 to 70, and what those numbers are. Did y'all go sign up on the website? Don't say you didn't want to give the government your information. You got a Social Security number. You've already given it. Stop it. So did you go to the Social Security website, sign up, get an account so you can see what they're predicting what your Social Security is going to be? And if you say, I don't know, I don't know if we're gonna have Social Security around by the time I retire, that's fine. However, at least have the idea of what it could be. So, because a lot of times, most of the wealth, when they're doing wealth planning, they're going to include that inside of as part of your retirement portfolio. Just being honest with you, right? So you might want to go look at that and see what that number is.
Now, assuming that this is optimal in our situation, the 4% rule really starts to break down. Because if we retire at 62 and we're delaying Social Security until age 70, how much can we take within that first 8-year period? Well, if we start taking 4% from our portfolio, we're going to have a pretty weird looking retirement. For instance, if we start taking 4% from our portfolio during those first 8 years, well, we're going to have some pretty low income in those first 8 years. And then once we turn age 70, we're going to have some significantly higher income because we're now layering on an entirely additional income stream. So how do we fix this? Well, unfortunately, we can't with some simple all-encompassing rule like the 4% rule is meant to be. We essentially need to rebuild withdrawal rates specific to your situation. Now, people are going to be retiring on a different timeline. They're going to have a different Social Security benefit that is going to turn on at different times. And if you're in a married couple, we might have to turn on 2 Social Security benefits and time those given strategies properly. Well, that can change the underlying withdrawal rates in a big way. Well, let's say that we're using this example of someone retiring at 62, turning on Social Security at age 70. Now, under this type of income schedule, we would have seen that this retiree could have started out by spending $82,000 per year from their portfolio.
All right, now you're catching what he's saying. What he's saying is this. He was like, when you turn 62 and you retire, you're not including this, you're not accounting that what you're going to get in terms of this Social Security. So instead of getting 40,000 out and then waiting to 70 or 50,000, whatever it was, and waiting to 70, and then now you're adding that in. What he's saying is take a larger distribution, right? A larger withdrawal down, or a larger withdrawal, and then tailor that off towards your 70, meaning scale back the money you're pulling from your own portfolio, and then add that money in, and then now you're still at the same income level, but you're not taking as much from your portfolio, your overall portfolio, right? You're adding in the Social Security, and now you're going back, right? You want to tailor off on your money, right? Because you may want to leave a little bit more money to your spouse or significant others and so forth.
This would have been a 5.8% withdrawal rate, but understanding that withdrawal rate would have dropped significantly once this retiree turned age 70. And so as we think about different income streams turning on at different times, there will be different phases of your retirement where you might have a significantly higher withdrawal rate that then drops to a lower withdrawal rate based on the timing of that Social Security benefit. If this retiree was 65 years old, they could have even taken a larger withdrawal rate from their portfolio starting out as they delayed until 70. ultimately, what I think would be most beneficial is to rebuild the 4% rule, but under your exact dynamics. And we would see a much better system being built and one you can safely follow as well. Now,
I want to say this. I'm glad you said that, Q4. You said all this talking is unnecessary. He just needs to say for every 100,000 you want to live off of, you'll need a million per decade. You'll need at least 10 million to retire. Now, I'm glad you said that. This goes back to that three bucket strategy. What does 10 million mean for retirement? Is that 10 million all in a tax free bucket? Is that 10 million? Is that 5 million in a tax deferred bucket? Is that tax now? Is that money that you're earning now? What is the how is your 10 million made up, right? How is that's the important part, right? That's the key piece right there that keeps escaping, I think, everyone is you can get to 10 million with 5 million tax deferred, 4 million after taxes, and then maybe 2 or 3 million on a tax now. But you have maybe 500,000 sitting in emergency cash or what have you. You may have some assets that are producing something for you as well too, right? But again, how does your what does your portfolio look like? What does that 10 million overall look like? That's going to be important for you, because if you have that tax deferred, remember there's a RMD that at 72, it's got to come out. So now that's going to raise your taxes up. And so knowing when to do a Roth conversion, so that you can get out of that is another thing. And again, this is not this is not financial advice. These are things that I've just read and have learned along the way, and have started asking questions about what that looks like. I can tell you out of how my portfolio is set up, it's a 50-50 thing. And what I'm working on, and when I say 50-50, is tax deferred, 50-50, and tax and after tax, right? So 5 and 5. Well, what I'm saying to you is I'm really more focused on what this tax free could look like, right? How can I push more over to there? And when should I do a Roth conversion, from this tax deferred to tax free? And remember, when you do the tax deferred to tax free, that conversion, Uncle Sam is going to get that money. So if you want to be at 10 million, and this is these two together added together are 5, you're probably going to need more over here, or you're going to need more here to make up for the taxes that are going to come out to so you can move over to here. All right. So these are things that you have to remember. And you may not stay in the United States as well too. You may go somewhere else and live. You also may go decide to live in Puerto Rico. You may decide to live overseas or what have you. But I've seen the videos with some of you men when you go overseas. I won't say who or what or whatever, but some of y'all are not really living that well overseas. And the one video I showed it on here with the guy, he went over to Thailand and ended up he's what 60, 67 years old, ended up with a eventually dating a 19-year-old. It ended up having a baby by a 19-year-old, and you like 60, 67. Like, why would you want to have a baby by a 19-year-old this late in the game? And he didn't have any money. The other two women had ran through his little retirement, and he was waiting on his retirement money to hit from the United States from his retirement plan. And he went over like, come on now. Let's do better, right? Y'all going way over to Thailand at 60 to hook up with a 19-year-old. And of course she gonna get her money. She's 19. You were ATM to her. No, she loved me from the heart. Yes, yeah, the heart of your money. Yeah, that's what she did. I was 19. You was 19. Stop it. You go way over to Thailand. Come on now. And you wait till you get 60 to go hook up with a 19-year-old. Stop. Stop. Maybe he wanted bragging rights. He got bragging rights. He did. He got a whole video about him, how he broke, how he ain't got no money, how he moved into she done moved in the house and all her people done moved in there and they ciphering through his cash. Yep. And he's 67. So now what kind of skills do he have? Can he even make it back to the United States? Where he gonna live? He gonna have to live in Tent City. I'm sorry, California gonna have to take him in. We don't want him. He gonna have to stay in Tent City. We don't want him. I'm just simply saying, like, come on, like, at some point you gotta like something gotta click. I'm just saying, and I think, and me personally, I think at a certain point, there should be a mental health check on people in retirement. I think we need to be have a mental health check. Like, are you okay with doing this right here? Financial advisors strongly advise that you don't do this. I would love to have been a fly on the wall, and no disrespect to him at all. I would love to have been a fly on the wall in his case, and I would love to be a fly on the wall. Hey, I'm being messy T right now. I would love to be a fly on the wall in Nick Cannon's case because I see he getting ready to get married again. I want to be a fly on the wall in that situation with this girl and all these babies. What is everybody gonna do? We gonna all live in one big house? He gonna try? He trying it? I got so many questions, but we're gonna move on. We're going back to retirement. I'm just being messy, but I'm just saying. I don't know why you go way over to Thailand to be 60 and broke. That don't make sense to me.
The final
Going
problem
back.
that I have with the 4% rule is the current application of this 4% rule is incredibly narrow and to a point where it doesn't really benefit real world retirements. Now, there are a couple different retirement goals that we're going to walk through that I see a lot of retirees have that the 4% rule just fails to meet. So first, we'll find that the 4% rule doesn't exactly mimic real retirement spending. Now, we've talked about this a few different times on our Safeguard Wealth Management YouTube channel, that most people build retirement plans with what I would call a brute force spending method. So they'll take their starting income and they'll simply increase that for inflation through time. But this doesn't exactly mimic what we see from how retirees actually spend their money in retirement. In reality, we find that retirement spending follows more of a smile than we see a static, constant spending line. For instance, retirees typically spend a little bit more on the front end of their retirement, where they have a larger discretionary budget, where they're more active and able to do things. Then as we see them age through retirement, we typically see spending drop. We then see towards the back half of their retirement, they typically spend a little bit more due to healthcare costs. And so if you
So this is that smile I was talking about. This is that smile I was talking about, right? Because when you retire, of course you're gonna travel. You want to go see places. You want to spend time with people. You want to go do things that you didn't get a chance to do before, right? And then as you kind of tailor off, kind of the newness wears off. You wear down, but then the older you get, some people got arthritis, they got gout, they can't walk, they have issues with uh, just health overall because you're just aging. There's mental, there's all these different things. So it happens, right? So, but there are things, preventative maintenance that you can do to not have that. D say low T. I'm just saying there are things that you could do to not have these issues, um, uh, or slow down those issues, right? Some things are inherited and just have an onslaught, and you are born with those things, right? Right. But again, you notice the smile, right? You're high here, you're spending high here, you're dipping down, and then you come back up. And this, to me, is where that HSA kicks in at. This is where if you've done your estate planning, you set aside that money for your health care, right? You set aside to have a nurse come in and do a wellness check on you once a week. You have food deliveries set up for you. You have maybe you go into a 55 and older community where you can get access to different I don't want to say medical situation, but I want to say like you get access to uh, more things for you in retirement in regards to physical therapy and so forth, right? So maybe you move into a community like that. Maybe you move into a community, or maybe you move back home with your children. Some people move back home with their children. Um, or maybe their child moves in to help safeguard that. So there are different scenarios for different things, but there are things that we as our own people, as our own humans can do there, that we can take care our put things in place to take care of ourselves, right? Take care of ourselves. You say, oh, you know, a group of people who do making local links and networking, and you can make, yeah, yeah. And so those are things like in Florida, they have vans that pick up people and take them to the grocery store. You know, the van takes them to the grocery store. They do their shopping, they do their thing. I think D hates it. She's like, "Oh, Tuesday, the old folks be in there. They be in the way." And then you also have, like, if you go to any of the casinos in Florida, they got whole vans that bring in whole people in the casino. And them, let me tell you, them ladies be on walkers, they be on oxygen tanks, they be on everything. They come into the casino and they gonna play their little money, and that's their little outing. And that's a good and bad thing, right? I think it's a good thing because it keeps their mind sharp. It keeps them out. They see in the world. They're still functioning. It's a bad thing if they don't have no money and they're going to spend that last little $200, before that check hit, right? So again, creating the outing, like not everyone, and my mom specifically does not want to be baby. Like, don't baby me. Don't do that. Don't do that. My mom in particular, like, I can do it myself. I don't need that. So again, some people are like that, and some are like, no, nurture me, hold me, wash my feet, do everything for me. Right? I probably like nurture me, hold me, wash my feet. I probably be like that. I don't know. We'll see. I ain't got there yet. All right, back to the video.
You're building a retirement plan, assuming constant inflation adjusted spending, you're likely overestimating what you're actually going to need as you move through retirement. And so let's say that we update this 4% rule to follow this retirement spending smile. Well, now we'll actually see an adjustment up, where we see that a lot of retirees can actually spend quite a bit more from their retirement portfolio. And so under the 4% rule, we would have seen that the low for how much you could have safely spent from your retirement was in 1966, and it was technically 4.03%. Well, adjusting this to the spending smile, we would have seen that you could actually spend 4.73% from your retirement portfolio based on that low. Now, for a retiree with $1 million portfolio, this translates to about $7,000 more per year that they can spend right off the front end. Again, that will adjust lower, but again, keep in mind that that mimics real world spending more adequately than a constant inflation adjusted spending goal. Another massive issue that I don't think a lot of retirees realize is the 4% rule was based on portfolio depletion, meaning that if we started out a 30-year retirement and at the end of those 30 years, we had just $1 left in our portfolio, that would be considered a success underneath the 4% rule. Now, this would make a lot of retirees, as well as myself, nervous, because that is an extremely fragile way to build your retirement plan. For instance, this is the wealth path of the 4% rule started in 1973, starting with $1 million portfolio. And as you can see, there were some large crashes at the beginning of the 70s that led to this portfolio almost being depleted. Now, this is a 30-year retirement, and we see this $1 million portfolio in inflation adjusted terms goes from $1 million down to around $100,000 by the end of this 30-year retirement. Now, this leaves very little in the way of a safety margin in case there are things like long-term care costs, or what happens if this retiree lives a couple of years longer. If we put ourselves in the shoes of this retiree and we see our portfolio depleting over the last, well, I should say really the entirety of our retirement, that would lead to a lot of worrying and a lack of peace of mind. And so if we rebuild the 4% rule to now build in a safety buffer at the end, we'll see the withdrawal rates completely change. For instance, on the screen, I have 3 different withdrawal rate lines. Now, the blue line is.
Now I want to pause it right here because one of the things that he talked about was, you see how, let me pause for a second. D, you are the pot. But you see how he talked about how the portfolio almost got depleted. This is another thing too, right? I won't say portfolio, we'll say 401k. So that's another thing too, that we need to be aware of is that we are, put this on the screen. D Linux Link's pot of kettle, right? She's talking about she cup. But anyway, what we're talking about is this: how do you also not necessarily protect against that coming down, but what other income stream should you also have in your portfolio? If you're totally relying on your 401k, that could be a problem. So this goes back into that asset conversation that we have. What does this look like, from real estate to watches to RV parks to commercial real estate, the whole nine, right? Everything we all talked about, right? We talked about so many different things, but those are other different streams of income that you could potentially still have coming in that's not reliant on the market and then distributing to you, right? So again, what are your asset classes that you're in? Let me get back. Pot, can you pull me back up on the screen? Thank you, Pot.
The normal 4% rule based on wealth depletion at the end of this person's 30-year retirement. The next 2, however, build in a safety buffer at the end. So for instance, the orange line is, let's say we wanted to preserve your nominal wealth. So if you started with $1 million portfolio, we know that inflation is going to devalue that $1 million portfolio over time. But let's say that in nominal terms, we wanted to end retirement still with $1 million. The gray line will solve for real wealth. So if we start with $1 million portfolio, we want to end retirement with $1 million inflation adjusted portfolio. Both of these build in safety buffers at the end of retirement, but obviously with differing amounts. What we'll see with these updated withdrawal rates is that if we wanted to preserve our nominal wealth, the lowest withdrawal rate would have actually happened in 1937. And we could have only taken 3.77% from our portfolio. We would have seen, if we wanted to preserve our real wealth moving through time, this gray line here, we would see that the lowest withdrawal rate we were able to take, the safe withdrawal rate, if you will, was only 2.72%. And so we'll see a widely different amount that you can take based on what your goals are at the end of your retirement.
All right, so who can live off of 2% of $1 million? Calculate that and put it in the chat, and then tell me where y'all living at.
Whether you want to leave a safety buffer in for the unexpected, or you want to leave an inheritance to the next generation. Another way we can increase our confidence in withdrawal rate planning is looking beyond the US. So the 4% rule was developed by just looking at the US market. And regardless of who you are, you have to admit that the US has been on an incredible run in terms of financial market growth over the last century. If we look at the US relative to the size of the world market, we would have seen that the US was only 15% of the world market. To compare, the UK was 24% of the world market at the beginning of the 20th century. Through the next 120 years, due to growth, we would have seen the US really establish itself as the dominant world power. It now holds a share of about 60% of the world market. And so through that time, we would have seen incredible growth from the US. And so we would expect withdrawal rates to be higher because of that. What if we look, though, internationally, and we look more at a world withdrawal rate rather than just focusing on the US withdrawal rate? On the screen, I have the safe withdrawal rates in 17 developed markets across the worut. This was.
All right, so he has a safe withdrawal rate of 17 different markets across the world. He's put that up here. So I want to get back to the question that I asked. The question that I asked is, where are you living at off of 20K for the year, and how much is that a month? Where are you staying at? Did you work hard? Did you work that hard all this time to get to that, right? Did you work that hard all this time to get to just the 20K for retirement? Does that make fundamental sense, right? Does that make fundamental sense? Um, I, I don't know if you can live off of that, uh, being that you are living in the basically the southeast in most of these cities, unless you're living in like I don't know Louisiana in the country, Missouri in the country, Texas in the country, and I don't even know if you got country parts of Texas. I guess you do probably could have part country parts of Texas. Seem like all the country parts are turning into major cities to me. You're staying under the overpass next to Grady. Could be. Yep. I'm coming to stay with women Lennox living on my 2%. We're not no estate, no stay. No estate, no stay. You better you better get yourself together. I'm telling you that now. All right. But again, I just want to pull these numbers out. This is so important because I think we get caught up with like, oh, I people just don't know how to budget their money, and it's not that people don't know how to budget their money. If we got milk at $5, right? And I don't, as these rents go up, I don't see them going back down. I'm sorry, I don't see people being like, my rent. I went from 1,600 to 2,000. I don't see people going back to saying I'm going back to 1,600 in rent. I don't see that. I don't see that at all. Right. So as you can see here, they have the actual cities or countries, I should say, on here: Sweden, uh, Canada, Denmark. Which is Canada is kind of unique to me because BlackRock just established a location in Canada, and now they're looking to invest and buy up real estate in Canada. Now, where in Canada are they looking is the question. What are they buying up in Canada? Right? What resources are they looking to acquire? They're worth 881. I think they're worth $881 billion. What is BlackRock looking for out of Canada? What assets are they looking to acquire? What companies are they looking to acquire? What housing developments are they looking to acquire? When we look at that. South Africa 3.84, United Kingdom 3.77, Australia 3.68. But then when you get down here to Japan at 0.47, Germany at 1.14, France and Belgium and Italy. But again, you also have to consider what's the racial climate over there like? Should you be learning the actual, not just the culture, but the actual language itself? Japan, I think you'll be okay. Germany, I think you'll be okay. Depending on what part of France you're in, you'll be okay. But again, these are other locations where you can go and retire and be. Seems like you'll be okay. But they are. He goes on to a little bit more about this, so I'll let him talk.
Later update to include more than 22 world markets. And what we'll see is there are only 3 instances in 3 different countries where the safe withdrawal rate would have been higher than 4%, higher than the US. In all other countries, we would actually seen a significantly lower withdrawal rate. Keep in mind as well that this is built under perfect foresight, meaning that they basically looked at the given allocations between stocks and bonds and looked at what would have delivered the highest safe withdrawal rate. And so this is done with a little bit of data mining here. That's done intentionally. Interestingly enough, we would have seen, looking at all of this market data, that 63% of the time, a stock allocation of 70% or more would have been optimal. Now, we see this much lower in the US, but it's interesting as a perspective that a larger stock allocation generally wins when we look at international exposures. And if we aggregate all of the world data together, we would have seen that the world safe withdrawal rate would have been slightly higher than 3.5%. So once again, we see an adjustment down when we include more data than just the US. And I think this is very important to note when we look at the statistical significance of the 4% rule. If we're looking at 120 years worth of data, and we're looking at a 30-year retirement, there are only 4 distinctly different trials that we're looking at within that 120 years worth of data. Because of this, it's very important to look not only at global data, but also run a lot of these assumptions underneath a Monte Carlo, where we simulate data based on historical parameters. in all of these scenarios, we would have seen the 4% rule update to a lower safe withdrawal rate. And so we see the further that we look at the 4% rule, the more the data gets a little bit fuzzy. In fact, we see some things raise the starting withdrawal rate that we should be able to take, like following the spending smile, while other things adjust the safe withdrawal rate down. Ultimately, I think you should build your safe withdrawal rate under the important dynamics and goals that you have inside of your plan. Now, unfortunately, that won't allow you to use some simple rule of thumb like the 4% rule, but diving into the complexity, you will see delivers significantly better outcomes to your retirement. And keep in mind that there are things that you can do inside of your retirement plan to improve your safe withdrawal rate, such as tax planning. In this video right here, we talk about 9 common retirement tax spikes that you will see that can creep up on you. Now, avoiding these tax spikes is critical in keeping that safe withdrawal rate the highest that it can be for your retirement. Click on this video right here to learn more. And always remember, you don't need more money, you need a better plan. In today's video,
I hope that video made sense to y'all, because I don't think when we think about withdrawal and what we're putting away, we're also including taxes. That's really important for your plan, and it's also important for you to understand what your options are, right? Tax free, right? Building that up. Also building up your not just your tax free, but other income streams, and that's why we're doing the show. D could drop it. We're doing a binary hustlers tomorrow. I know everybody's been waiting for it. We're gonna do a binary hustlers tomorrow. On that show, I'm gonna cover Ryan Pinup, but I also found 2 other people that I want to cover as well too. So be ready tomorrow. It's gonna be jam packed. We're gonna have a lot of information going over there. We're gonna talk about the different 11 income streams that he has, but we're also gonna talk about 2 other people that I think are very important that you should be looking at, and you'll get a chance to. We'll get a chance to really do a deeper dive on that. That's gonna be fun tomorrow. I can't wait to get that cracking and rolling. I only got 2 hours, so I gotta kind of get through it. And go from there. Man, done, man. You gotta talk to D on the shirts, man. You gotta talk to D on the shirts. Same way with no estate, no date. And my new one is you're only one skill away from 200K. One skill away from 200K. That's my new one. But when they hit, they're gonna hit. Do you think people should actively pursue dual citizenship? I think people should do what it takes that's gonna benefit them, their mental health, and their family. And why did I say mental health? Because some people can't live apart from their family. Some people can't live apart from their family. So when people, when that happens, some people are not going to move outside of the U.S. or whatever their family is. But at the same token, there are things they can do where they may not have to be so far apart from their family. Like Puerto Rico, you have to have one employee and you have to be there for 6 months. So you can get a federal tax break that way. So there's another tax incentive. Now, under the tax free as well too, which he didn't discuss, but I looked up, is the 1031 exchange. However, you have to have that established first before you go buy the property, right? So being tax free is the 1031 exchange falls under that. And then I have this one other quick one. I'm not going to play the whole video. I do want to show the states
in today's video
that he stated were same guy that he stated was that you can live at to be tax free. So let me not tax free, but states that have bad taxes. So I'm going to skip to this part right here.
The big question a lot of retirees watching this video will have is, how will we know if we're at risk of hitting some of these levels as we plan towards the end of our retirement? Well, this comes back to how you build your retirement plan. So if you're building your retirement plan under just one return trial, as soon as you build that plan, it's almost guaranteed to be wrong. We can't predict what next year's market returns look like, let alone the next 10, 20, 30 years. So we often talk about that you should be simulating market environments, looking at great market return trials as well as poor market return trials.
All right, so I'm gonna pause right here. You can't really see this, I can, so I'll read it out to you. And he's saying in Oregon, there's a 1 million. Do you have an estate or inheritance tax? So they have 1 million. Washington State has 2.5. He don't have one for Maryland. Says has state has no estate tax, and I showed this in a previous video. But he also goes on to talk about what other issues that they have. So I'm gonna get back to you and let him do his thing.
Trials. And with that, we'll see your level of risk, your probability of hitting some of these state estate tax levels. So for instance, as we run that Monte Carlo and we see these simulations moving through time, we can start to see the probability that you have, which might be in someone's case, 40% likelihood of hitting those given state estate levels. That might be something where we now want to start building in some planning to avoid that higher probability of hitting those given levels and trying to avoid that estate tax. Let's move on to another pair of states with fairly low exemption levels. We have Rhode Island here and Washington. Now, Rhode Island has an exemption level of about 1.7 million. And keep in mind that I'm doing a lot of rounding with each of these levels, so they're not exact here. But the estate tax rates range from 0.8% up to 16%. And the interesting detail here is the tax exemption level is not portable between spouses, meaning that regardless of if you're married, you still have that same $1.7 million exemption level. Now, some states will have portability, other states will not have that portability. And again, that's a very important detail to be considering with these various states. We also have Washington here with $2.2 million of an exemption level, and the estate tax rates start quite a bit higher, from 10 to 20%.
Now that's on your estate. They taxing you at 10%, 20%, 16%. Rhode Island, like that's a lot. So inside of your planning, you're probably gonna have to plan for this tax. Excuse me, you're gonna have to plan for this tax, and that's what he's getting at again with the Monte Carlo, where you're claiming your residence at, and so forth, right?
As those given rates as you scale above that exemption level. Now, from an interesting detail standpoint, this interesting detail really isn't only with Washington. It's actually with the majority of these states that they do not assess a state gift tax. They only are subject to federal gift tax rules. And so this can be an important detail to deal with some of these state estate tax limits. Gift before you pass away. Now
we talked about that. That's that crummy trust that we talked about, gifting from the estate to your beneficiary, right? So you create a trust, you gift to the trust. The beneficiary of the trust is the person that you want to have of that. So we can now saying, we can start talking about, okay, well, we gifting into the trust and the trust pays you out, right? So we can, I don't want to say avoid taxes. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm just saying we can help minimize, if you follow me, the tax burden there. And also, even when you look at those RMDs, those required minimum distributions from your 401ks, seek a CPA or a lawyer on this. I want to know, and this is something that I've been asking, why can't I, if I'm required to take a minimum distribution, can I take a minimum distribution and put it into a trust, and I become the beneficiary of the trust, and then I get a check from the trust versus me getting the check directly, where I am getting involved in tax. And intentional millionaire, you can tell me yay or nay on that. But that's a question that I have for your Roth 401k, well, for your traditional 401k and your IRA. Why should I be the beneficiary when RMDs kick in? Only when RMDs kick in. Why can't I put that into a trust and then have the trust pay me to avoid some of those taxes? Just curious on that one.
Some states have a gift clawback, and we'll talk about what some of those states are here in a second. But let's bring up another important layer onto this estate tax discussion that a lot of retirees may not be thinking about, and that's the nasty double taxation effect that we may see within your situation depending on how you are passing on your given retirement accounts. So let's take an individual that has a very large traditional IRA that they're passing away with. And let's say with this very large traditional IRA, that was really the majority of their given assets. Now, we're not going to dive into very specific amounts and showing given taxes based on those specific amounts, but let's just use some generalities here. So let's say with this large estate, this retiree has an estate tax bill of $250,000. Well, if we think about that, that $250,000 has to be paid from somewhere. Well, if somebody has all or majority of their money in a traditional IRA that they're passing on to the next generation, well, as we pull that $250,000, guess what? There's going to be tax owed on that $250,000. And so this estate tax can create a double taxation depending on those given accounts.
And that's what I'm talking about, that double taxation there. You see that? You're pulling out $250,000, plus you're getting hit again with 24% on that, and now your gross amount in taxes that you're owed is that. Now we won't talk about the whole thing that happened with Aretha Franklin Prince. What's his name? Chad, not Chadwick, but what is his name from Black Panther? Forget his name, Chad. I'm gonna forget it. Bozeman, isn't it? Chadwick Bozeman, right? And they didn't have a will, right? And 900,000 went to the government, right? Out of that will. So again, we are talking about again, as you're building wealth, and even as you're working, right? You need to be talking about how to stay tax free, and we also need to start thinking about ways that we can be nimble with our taxes, right? So again, we want to get to the goal of 200K. You're only one skill away, and we also want to start thinking about estate planning, right? And in your estate planning, you want to include your three bucket strategy, and as well, you want to also look at what does it look like. What should you be investing in for tax free, after taxes, and now, right? So that residual income with real estate, maybe you go buy some watches and you start investing in watches. You hold on to those watches. You have to do your research on those particular watches, as well too doing research on commercial property, land, RV parks, building subdivisions. What does that look like? You know, a lot of people are building subdivisions and they're only building houses to rent. Um, you too could do that, right? What does that look like? What does the structure look like? Should you build a fund? Should you buy a business? These things are what we're talking about: accumulating and building wealth, using your tech money in order to get there, but also being aware of your taxation. What tax brackets are you falling into? What tax brackets can what can you not necessarily avoid, but how should you structure yourself again for the long term? Also, when you're looking for a financial planner and someone to do set you up with your estate and your life insurance, make sure you like the people. Court the people just like you would with a spouse, or you're trying to find a school for your child or whatnot. Court the people. Make sure you like them. Make sure they have good manners, right? Make sure that you're able to ask questions and they don't get annoyed by you asking questions, or when you ask them something they go look it up and they get back to you in a timely manner. Or don't, if they don't remember your name, and a good idea of this is I don't know if you heard about the story about how Nike lost what's his name from the Warriors. Good God, I can't believe I forget that boy name right now. Warriors. Oh God, Golden State. Um I forget his name. Chef. Yep, Steph Curry. Steph Curry. I was going to say, yeah. Anyway, they lost him because they were doing a presentation and they had somebody else's name on the presentation. They didn't even do the courtesy of taking somebody else's name off. So basically, like he was saying, he's like, so you just cut and paste and presented me the same thing that you said that you presented with somebody else. You didn't even take the time. He was the yep. He was when you look at stuff like that, when you're talking to these life insurance people or investments and so forth, you got to be thinking about how people are treating you. Remember, these people are going to be with you and helping you protect your asset. You're relying on them to show you things and tell you things that you're not aware of. And again, you got to remember, everybody don't know everything. So if you find out something, send it over. I'm good for sending, hey, I watched this video and we got me set up like this and they're saying this is not good, and I looked through here and went through here. We need to have a discussion. Can you schedule a call on Friday at 10? I'll be there. Okay, cool. Look at this video before we talk. Look at this video before we talk. Right? I am very good for that. It says, Helmet Chili said, as I listen to him, I'm thinking about it may be lucrative to build retirement communities abroad for the US. Yeah, yeah. You could build retirement communities. Helmet Chili says, gotta fill them out. And if you know people that know them, ask them and ask them their track record. Ask them have their built portfolios to the ones that you want. If you want a $10 million portfolio, a $20 million portfolio, a $50 million portfolio, and then don't be afraid to ask, like, hey, can you bring in somebody else? Because I want to verify what you're saying and my thoughts and so forth and so on. I go through all of that. You spending your money. And remember, this is your life, your retirement. This is what you want to have set up. The same way when you get your sign-on bonus from the new job. Where are you gonna take that $20,000 or that $100,000 that you get as a sign-on bonus, right? 70,000 after taxes. Where are you gonna put that money at? What is that money gonna? How are you gonna make that money work for you? What is the taxes on that? Are you living in an income state free tax? Are you federal? What? How does that look? Where you claiming residence at? Can you work remotely? Can you work abroad? Some places you can't work abroad because of the type of agency you may be working for. You may be working on the federal side, and they may not let you take it abroad, like your laptop abroad, right? So again, you got to figure out, what does that look like? Would they have to hire you in that particular country? Then they have to reissue a laptop for that. You know, again, and we all want to be digital nomads. We all want to travel, but just understand the restrictions. Yep. Understand the restrictions of what that are centered around you when you do that. But also, too, to add to all of this, understand the taxation. Understand your taxes. Understand those that are overemployed. What could be how can you set up a SEP RA where you're paying into that SEP RA at 61,000. Maybe you do a lump sum at the end of the year. Maybe you do it monthly. How do you make that money grow? Say you got that SEP RA. How are you making that money grow? Who's watching that money? How does that money play into your retirement, right? Or do you set up and say, well, I'm only going to live off of one of my uh, portfolios, right? And again, estate planning, you don't have to have just one estate. You can have, there's nothing that says that you have to have one estate, right? There's no guideline, no rule there. But remember, there's some boundaries there that you need to discuss with people. What's in it, so forth and so on, taxes, the whole nine, and where you create them at as well too. And don't forget, in some of these portfolios is crypto, which gets into another conversation. When I was listening to and I need to go back and listen to the full video. In my IFS course, Simon was talking, and we were talking about, and I'm going to talk more about this on the second show. Uh, how to appeal to investors and people who are family offices. And or I say when I say people, I should say family offices in general, right? Where you can have a small family office of 10 million, 20 million, and I think that's mid-size, and large size is 100 million. So how do you appeal to them on an investment, right? And one key thing that stuck out that he said was, well, a few things that he said was, most people who are in a family office are very conservative. They don't want to lose wealth. So they're less likely to take risk and more likely to bet on a sure thing. However, being the reason why that conversation came up was he was talking about crypto and how family offices look at crypto. They don't really care about crypto as much as they care about blockchain and the research behind blockchain. So they're willing to invest into blockchain versus they are investing into crypto. And so one of the bigger conversations was most banks own are very heavily into crypto. And so, of course, regulation will be coming now for that. We've seen that. However, what does that look like for banks and investments and investment portfolios? We saw Fidelity, not Mass Mutual, but New York Life actually bought a crypto company, and they're starting to offer that. JP Chase Morgan is also starting to offer crypto. Well, they bought a company and they're gonna start offering it too. But those things are coming out where in your portfolio, maybe you're not just totally invested into this. Maybe you're investing into other things. And the other one is that we didn't mention that I forgot to mention was being that accredited investor, and maybe you start into invest into a stock, or you're investing into a cloud company or a SaaS company or research and development company, and you're taking your 10,000 and you're investing into that. Don't forget your intangible assets also create wealth when we're talking about your patents and so forth, right? Uh, your intellectual property also creates wealth as well too, right? So when you're thinking about your whole entire portfolio and everything that is all this is centered around, you need to write down everything, right? Write down everything and come up with what that looks like. Again, where does this money lie? Where is it at now after tax free? And how does it play out over time? What are you predicting over time, right? So sit down and talk with someone and really do a deep dive into your portfolio, what it could look like, um, what your real estate could look like, and everything, right? It's this is your life. This is the life that you're building. This is the life that you want to have, right? Is the time is now. Don't wait, don't delay, do it now. We got another show coming up here, I think in a few minutes here, at 2:30. Be ready for that show. It's gonna be jam packed. It's going to be a lot of money talked about it in that show. If you don't want to hear about Linux and money and so forth, then don't come to the show. It's okay. We're okay with that. But we're going to get into some numbers today. All right. Let me read these comments before we get out of here. The Family Office Club has some good free resources. Yep. If anyone is interested, this content is for informational purposes only. Yep, and you should not construe any such information or any or other material as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. Please consult a professional, and also get a professional to consult the professional. Right? If you don't trust someone, don't roll with them. If you don't like someone, don't roll with them. If they can't give you the information that you need and they look annoyed, don't roll with them. Right? Go where you're liked, go where you're celebrated. If the person is not excited for you, or like that you can't get there, telling you can't there, then they need to work and figure out how to get you there. And y'all need to come up with a game plan to get you there. If your game plan is 50 million, what does that look like? Let's talk about it. I know Dunn has been working on his plan, and we're supposed to have a discussion about it. So I can't wait to see what he came up with. I can't wait. And remember, when you come up with these plans, they're just illustrations for now. They may be adjusted. So don't get upset and be like, well, I'm a failure, or this ain't gonna happen for me. You don't know what can happen for you. You don't know where life takes you. You don't know who you meet. You don't know what position you could be in that could change your life, right? But you got to do the work in order to get there. I see y'all at in I guess about 20 minutes. Remember, you're only one skill away from 200K. See you later.